Good morning. While you are tuning in, let me put our phone number for those of you who need it. Good morning. Good morning. If this is your first time here, welcome. If you have a friend who has immigration needs, share this live. This would be good for them to listen to. All right, guys, just give me a second. I am typing our phone number 404-333. Okay, so let me just pin this real quick. Good morning. How's everyone doing? If you're tuning in for the first time, welcome. My name is Attorney Aisha Chidole. I'm an immigration attorney here in Atlanta, Georgia, but we represent clients in all 50 United States. We handle basically almost all immigration cases with a few exceptions, family-based immigration. We handle family-based immigration, I should say, humanitarian-based cases, removal and deportation defense, and some detention work. So if you'd like to schedule a consultation with us, our phone number is pinned on Instagram. It's 407-995-6567 or 678-325-1037. Or you can also send a WhatsApp to 404-333-8751. This information is also on YouTube and it's on Facebook and a ticker. If you want to schedule a consult directly and not go through the phone call, our link to schedule yourselves is in our bio. So it's in the link in my bio on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube. But I wanted to share some news with you guys today. I don't know which one to start from, but I'll start from somewhere. So the first one, of course, is the news related to the new USCIS signature policy that is taking effect on July 10th, 2026. So basically, you should already be doing this. If you're not doing this already, you should be doing it. So basically, USCIS has a new or a more confirmed, stricter signature policy. And this was placed into effect to combat fraud. There's been a lot of fraud going on, or people signing for other people, or not them not being sure who signed the application. But now USCIS basically says, if you do not send a valid signature with whatever application that you're submitting, one of two things can happen. They can either reject your application and keep your filing fees, or in the process of reviewing it, and they determine that a signature was not valid or properly done, they can straight out deny your case and again keep your filing fee, which, as we all know, it could be several thousands of dollars depending on what it is that you're filing for. So for those of you asking, what is a valid signature? So a valid signature is a real handwritten signature in pen, like wet ink. Like you have to use, this is a pencil, but you have to use a pen to sign. So a real wet signature or a scanned copy of an original handwritten wet signature. The only time that a properly an electronic signature will be approved is if it is for an online approved filing. So there's certain forms that you can submit online. Like if you're doing your I-90 or something like that, or like a standalone I-130 or N-400, those are the times where, if it's done online, that's the only time you can use an electronic signature. Otherwise, it should always be a handwritten signature in wet ink pen. So what are some invalid signatures? Typing your name or writing out your name like you were printing it. I can't tell you how many times that I've had clients where I look at the signature and, there was once in an interview this years ago, even before COVID, where the officer said, So the person's signature was just their name. Let's say their name was John Doe. It was just John Doe, like almost like they just printed it, like they just wrote it. And she said, do you know how many people can defraud you by just having like you're printing out your like a printed word version of your name as your signature? So, you know, you want to make sure that you have a proper signature. A typed name or a printed name is not considered a valid signature. Signature stamps is not allowed. Copy and pasted signature images are not allowed. Signatures added by software without proper authorization are not allowed. Remember, it's only authorized if you're doing an online electronic filing of a specific form to USCIS. Because if USCIS accepts that filing and later decides that the signature is invalid, the agency may deny the case and they'll keep your filing fee, which again will suck. So the bottom line is just review every filing carefully, everything carefully before submission, especially in time-sensitive immigration cases, because there's nothing worse than submitting like an appeal, you know, or an RFE or annoyed or anything like that, where, you know, you are in a time-sensitive, they reject it, and then you're out of luck. So that's one update. The second update is that basically they are no longer permitted. A federal judge in New York basically passed a judgment yesterday, either yesterday or the day before yesterday. I think it was yesterday morning, or it might be the day before yesterday. But anyway, they passed a judgment saying that they can no longer arrest immigrants outside of court or in court because it is disruptive and it doesn't allow them to come there for something that they're legally mandated to be there for. So if you want people to have their day in court and not violate their due process, you have to allow them to come to court to plead their case. So please, guys, do not miss your court deadlines or your court hearings. I've had a client who we found out that she was ordered removed because she was afraid and she didn't attend her master hearing, even though she had relief. But then she was ordered removed. So obviously now coming to us, we now have to file a motion to reopen, do all these things. So make sure that you're going for that. So that's my other breaking news. And then the final one is that they are finally approving green cards that were on pause. So we got our first one, very excited. This morning I checked, we had a VAWA client whose VAWA had already been approved, and she had her green card interview yesterday. And I want to talk about that again. I talked about it yesterday, but I'm going to talk about it again. She had her green card interview yesterday, and they approved her for her green card last night. I'll post the result later on once I get off live. So they're producing her card, which is very exciting because you guys know that in on April 27th, they had paused green card approvals while they were rerunning all this fingerprints. So it means that, you know, people's fingerprints are being rerun. Hers was rerun again, actually, while we're there at the interview to make sure she didn't have like any other criminal records that they didn't know about or whatever it is. But she was approved, and I'm very excited for her because she is so deserving. You know, she is one of the nicest people I've ever met. Like, you know, there are certain times, you know, sometimes you might not remember certain people, whatever it is, but like she's someone I always remember because she's always on my, she used to always be on my live before she hired us, and just always so sincere and just very patient and just a kind person where something bad, you know, really happened to her. And so she really deserved it. So I'm very excited for her. And I just hope that that's the beginning to see more of this for a lot of our clients. You know, we do have clients from the 39 countries who have gotten their I-130 approved, and we're still kind of waiting for that 485. And just checking it every day now since we've seen that they're moving, just to see when theirs will get approved. And as I told you guys, I will be sharing, you know, as I hear, because I know that for many of you guys, you ask the same questions every single day. And I promise you guys, like, if I know it, I will be telling you. So you don't even need to ask me when is the pause over, the ban over. As I hear, I will be sharing it. So that's what I wanted to share. And then just to go back, as I was saying again, as a reminder, like for VAWA applications, guys, you guys want to make sure, guys, that, whatever it is that you're telling, whatever story it is that you're telling, you're able to, of what happened to you, that you're able to articulate that not only in your application, but to USCIS. There's a large fraud going on, in the world of humanitarian-based cases, which sucks, because for those who truly have genuine cases, it makes it that much harder, and it makes our fight that much harder. But it's really important that you're very mindful of whatever it is that you're submitting. It's very mindful, because those people are getting secondary inspections. I mean, we've not had any of our clients, but it's just something that, you want to know, that if you have a humanitarian-based case, or any case where you are like a victim and there's abuse involved, that if you're traveling internationally, be prepared that you might go into secondary inspection where they might ask you about that stuff. So just be prepared. They might want to look at your phone, they might want to do all that. Just be prepared. That's the most important thing. They've always done this for I-751 interviews, where there's extreme cruelty and abuse, where it's just been really, really tough interviews. Like, I'm sure you guys have heard me say, like, those in the past have been some of the most difficult interviews I've had with my clients, where there's just, the stance or the posture, of an officer is first to disbelieve you until you tell your story in these cases, especially because there's not an opportunity for them to necessarily speak to the other person who is being accused. And so that has now become the stance for cases like VAWA, where, you're also alleging abuse, and that they're having those interviews with you. So you have to make sure that you're prepared for that, and you're prepared to, whether it's been 3 years, 4 years, 5 years since you submitted your application, you better go back to your application and remember everything if you need a refresher of your memory, and make sure that you are signing your applications again yourself, you're reading your declarations again yourself, and all of that stuff. So that's that. All right. Good morning, Adele. Welcome. Phoenix says, just the person I was talking about yesterday. Hope it was something good. Amoya says, good morning, my best of all firm. Love you so much, my queen. Thank you. Love you right back. Someone says, can I send you an email? No, I'm inundated with emails, honestly, unless you're a client. If not, just call the office and schedule a consultation. Like, guys, I get so much emails, it's really, 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 really difficult to answer like every email, unless it's related to something that I'm doing. Like, sometimes I get random people literally emailing me their entire life via email. They're not clients. They didn't schedule a consultation and somehow want me to give them legal advice. I can't do that. If you want legal advice, follow the right channels by scheduling a consultation, and I will be happy to, give you a consultation, or any of our very abled attorneys here that handle consultations as well. Okay. Hey, Riza, how are you? And let's see. Let me see what else y'all got. Oh, someone says I was going to ask you about it. I'm not sure what you were going to ask me about, but I'm glad to know I answered that. Chidinma Ibo, good morning to you as well. That's how I do my signature from Passport. I did my psychology report over the phone for VAWA, and I signed over the phone. What do you mean you signed over the phone? How do you sign over the phone? What does that mean? Do you mean like you signed with your finger? Is that what you mean? Like you signed with your finger over the phone? If that is the case, you cannot do that. You have to sign with a wet ink pen. You must use a pen to sign. No more digital signature, guys. I'm telling you, So let's see what else we got here. So Nigerian applicants are moving along. So they're moving along as far as their I-130s. I'm still waiting to get one 485 approval so I can give you guys the good news, but their I-130s are finally being approved, which wasn't, in the beginning with the whole temporary pause, in the US. So, because it coincided with the blanket stop every green card until we've run the fingerprints. So our clients who got her approved, who had her interview yesterday and got her green card approved last night, is from Jamaica. But as I find, that's why I like to share countries, because I know, so many of you guys are from different countries, so that you can find your country there to kind of know the answer of, whatever it is. So Iram says, I kid you not when I tell you Attorney Aisha is that attorney that will respond to emails even at 2 a.m., 4 a.m. You're such a blessing to your clients. Love, love, love you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you. It's probably not healthy for me to, but sometimes I do. And I have to remind myself I need to take my behind to bed. But, sometimes if I'm just going through stuff, and even if I'm in a different time zone, sometimes if I'm out of the country, some people, like I always say to my staff, I'm so jealous of you guys. If you guys have vacation, you can go on vacation and log out. But, even if I'm on vacation, I have to literally allocate a time, at some point each day to kind of like go through emails, go through escalations, go through whatever, because that's just the nature of the kind of work that, we do here. So we always want to make sure that, I'm in the loop, which it'll be nice to really have a true full shutdown. For like a week, but thank you, Monica. Yes, I know. On a marriage-based green card, does USCIS check your I think you're trying to say DS-160, not DH. DS-160 submitted at the embassy for your visa application. Absolutely. Everything that you submit, every time you submit an application, they will review all your applications, so like if you submitted a B1, B2 visa, which is essentially what a DS-160 is, they're going to check that, especially for those of you who are from countries where you have like people from an agency fill out your application and they somehow convince you to say that you were married, even if you're not married. Like that stuff comes back to haunt you. So it's really important that you don't lie on your application. Listen, if you get a visa, you get a visa. If you don't get a visa, you don't get a visa. But lying bars you from so much and gives you or puts you through so much heartache, that you don't need, So yes, they check everything. As a matter of fact, I had a consult yesterday where that person had submitted an asylum application, and then the person submitted, so the asylum application wasn't approved. The person submitted an SIJS application, which is a special immigrant visa for juveniles, like if you're under 18, depending on the state, some states under 21. And then they actually, not only did they check all the applications, they actually went to their home country to go and find that person's parents to determine whether they had abandoned that person or not. So sometimes USCIS is that hardcore where they will go to that home country, or the fraud unit in that country will do an independent investigation. And so that is why you have to be honest in your applications. If you misrepresented yourself, one of the things that you need to be making sure of is to confirm, is there a waiver? The person ended up getting approved for their 10-year green card when they filed VAWA, they had a VAWA claim, and they were able to submit a 601 waiver for that misrepresentation of those two other cases. So that's why I say, tell the truth. Tell the truth. Like if you do something, if there is a waiver for it, then use the waiver. As long as you have a qualifying relative, because the way waivers work is that you need the qualifying relative, right? Or sometimes you can be your own qualifying relative, depending on what kind of case it is. But come clean, that's the only way to get yourself ahead, and especially now, okay? Simple Carrie said, so period. Oh my gosh, I'm seeing so many of my former clients here. So happy to see all of you. Princess Abigail says, you wouldn't believe I finished talking with my friend about you just now. I said how you changed my life. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Okay, let's see. Why is DHS denying flight back to USA? I don't know. Did they deny your flight back? If they did, I don't know because I don't know your case. We've, knock on wood, but all our clients have been back. The ones we approve. We don't approve everybody for travel. Personally, like if my case is pending right now, travel permit or not, this is just me personally. Travel permit or not, I wouldn't travel. People would send me emails talking about they're so frustrated. Why get a travel permit if I can't travel? Nobody's stopping you from traveling. If you want to travel, you got a travel permit. I'm just speaking of me personally. Like I won't travel unless it's dire straits, and I'm just like, you know what, whatever will happen. And especially depending on where your case is, especially if you've ever submitted any other application and you're on your second application. If you ever submitted any application and that application was denied and you're now pending another application, that group, you should never travel right now. Why? Because right now in this administration, if you had an old case that you filed that was denied, whether or not you have a new case, there is a good chance that you're going to receive an NTA. That's just the policy right now. Now, can you overcome the NTA with whatever new filing you have? Sure. Remember I was telling you guys about the client who we got the green card, even though he had the NTA, and then we went to court and it took 2 weeks for us to get that terminated. So he's a 10-year green card holder. But in that case, imagine that he had that denied and we got the work permit and he traveled before he got that NTA. Then we're talking about a different issue coming back to the United States. So unless the only group of people right now that I would even approve of traveling is this is your very, 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 very first case with USCIS for an immigration benefit, like a green card. And you have an approved travel permit. And you have not submitted a request for evidence. And you have not gone for an interview yet. And you don't have an NOID that we have submitted. If you fall under that, and the last thing, you've never been arrested. If you fall under that category, that's generally our safe zone for international travel. Everybody else, sit your butt at home, okay? Or do a video, get on FaceTime, get on Zoom, Sometimes we can make certain trips for certain reasons, and you have to ask yourself, weigh all of that, okay? Phoenix says, when your removal proceeding, can you hire a different attorney? You can hire a different attorney at any stage you are in, whether it's removal, whether it's after you've gone for your master's, whether you're going for your individual, whether your case is with USCIS, at any time. It's a free country. You can always change your lawyer. Mm-hmm. DJ Moses said, can we put you on the radio? In what capacity? I don't know what you guys would want me to do, but yes. If you submit a VAWA application, can you get remarried? Not until your VAWA case is approved. If you get married before your VAWA case is approved, your VAWA will be denied, or if it's been approved and they find out, it will be revoked, okay? How immigration court notice court date? I'm not sure I understand the question. If you can just rephrase that question. Is there an interview for VAWA I-360 application? Yes, I talked about this yesterday, so you can probably listen to it in more detail on my live from yesterday. But not everybody gets an interview, but some people do get interviews for the I-360 VAWA portion of their application. So you should, unless you're bypassed, just expect and prepare that you could be interviewed. That's what I say to everyone right now. This is new. This policy is new. Mm-hmm. I submitted my VAWA application in May of 2025. No prima facie determination letter yet. Is this normal? Did fingerprint it in February? Well, it will depend on May 2025. That's still not too far because that's also the window where there were delays in receipt notices. So it depends on when you actually got your receipt notice. So you're still in there in the running. I've seen some of ours from 2025 that are just getting their prima facie. But remember, not everybody is going to get a prima facie determination letter. And if you don't get a prima facie determination letter, you will get an RFE, most likely telling you that what things you're missing in your application in order for them to approve you for a prima facie determination. Can VAWA protect the U.S. citizen who was abused by the immigrant spouse? Can this negatively impact the immigrant spouse's ability to gain U.S. citizenship? So VAWA doesn't protect the point of VAWA is that it protects immigrants. That law is for immigrants who have been abused by a U.S. citizen family member. On the contrary, there are, I'm sure, other means in which you can be protected through law enforcement if you're a U.S. citizen being abused by your spouse, and I assume that it will affect if you're being abused, and you involve, and of course you let law enforcement know, it should affect the immigrant, I would assume. But that would be the best way to protect yourself. All right, guys. I'm sorry I didn't get to all the questions. I actually have to jump off right now. I'm going to answer this question. Someone says, what if you already submitted documents signed electronically? What should you do? This law of this mandatory stuff starts July 10th. At this point, there's nothing you can do if you submitted an electronic document. Sometimes USCIS might request additional evidence and specifically ask you for a wet signature. And one thing I want to mention is that everything that you submit, especially if you submit a scanned copy of your wet signature, which is fine, always maintain the copy of the original of the wet signature, just in case USCIS asks you about it. Or, if you have an interview, I always recommend bringing the original with you just in case they ask you about it or request additional evidence. All right, guys? All right. Again, schedule a consultation if you need specific assistance to yourself. Do not be afraid or shy to consult with an attorney. That is our job here, to counsel you, even if you have a complex immigration history. But the only way you would know what you're eligible for or not eligible for is true consultation, because we're limited by the parameters of what we can discuss here, with you without exposing who you are and your information. Again, our number is 407-995-6567. And I will appreciate a like, a share, or whatever for others who might find this information helpful. All right, guys, have a great rest of your week, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.